Well, an archaeologist at the U of C revealing new insights into the life of John Ware and his family after spending the summer digging at the John Ware Ranch in southern Alberta. Lindsay Amundsen-Meyer joining us now. Lindsay, thanks for taking time for us. And just let's start with, for those who don't know, who was John Ware?
Yeah, you bet. So I think a lot of people know his name. He's often referenced as Alberta's first black cowboy, although we do know he's maybe not the first, and definitely not the only. But he is a black individual who worked on ranches in Texas originally, and he came up with a cattle drive for the Northwest Cattle Company in 1882. That's headquartered at the Bayou Ranch here in Alberta at Longview. So he came up at that time and he stayed. He worked at the Bayou at the Corn Ranch and then established his own place at Millerville around 1888, where he stayed until about 1902.
And so that's where this dig was, I'm assuming. Tell us about exactly what you found.
Yeah, you bet. So we were at that first homestead at Millerville, and it's been quite amazing, actually. We were able to identify what we're quite confident are, the remains of his home. So we found what we thought was the cellar depression of his home, and when we excavated, we found not only artifacts within that, but also floorboards. There are very well defined, intact structural remains within that depression of that home, held together with square nails even, which is pretty neat because we know those predate 1900, so we're right in the right time frame. And then associated with that, we also have nearby a very nice, well-dated layer of artifacts or belongings that they appear to have discarded, where we're finding things like ceramic dinnerware and pieces of glass. We found a suspender clip with a patented 1881 date on it, an ink bottle, things like that as well. So it's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, such a great find, and two really interesting things emerging from this find. And the first is the level of affluence of the wares. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that really struck us in the field, I mean, we're still really getting into the analysis in the lab, but it was pretty clear that not everything we're finding is stuff, are belongings that you would say you need to have, right? They're not things you need to have to survive, all of them. So we were finding more of the want to haves, right? Decorative items. We found a green decorative glass, probably vase or bowl. We found a curtain finial made out of brass, so the decorative end of a curtain rod. And all those sorts of things sort of speak to, they must have had at least enough disposable income to acquire those sort of want to haves in their home as well.
You also learned a little bit more about Mildred Ware?
Yeah, to me that's almost the most fascinating because everybody discusses John Ware's name, but nobody really talks about Mildred. And so we definitely have some items there that I think are almost certainly Mildred's. Things like a sewing thimble, which was, it would be a woman's, right? So it must be Mildred's. A safety pin. I didn't realize they were invented back then, but they were, and they were used as diaper pins. So we're getting more items that are probably associated with Mildred and maybe can help us understand how she adapted to living out on the prairies in sort of the middle of nowhere after having come originally from a fairly well-to-do family in Ontario. You think that must have been quite a change, right?
Yeah.
So how did she adapt, right? And I think this assemblage can help us sort of piece that story together as well as John Ware's.
It's very cool. We're just about out of time, but where will the artifacts go? And do you think you have more to find?
Yeah, so ultimately here in Alberta, all of our work occurs under permit from Alberta Culture. And with that, all of the artifacts will end up at the Royal Alberta Museum in Edmonton. And I think we hope that we'll get them back perhaps to the Glenbow or the Calgary Stampede Sam Centre eventually on loan for an exhibit would be amazing. So that's pretty great. And we are very fortunate. We have a SSHRC, a Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council grant for a 3-year project. Right. This was just year 1. So we will be back out there for a couple more years. We worked with the museum to actually preserve those structural remains in place in the ground so that when we go back next year, they're still there and we can expose them more fully and see what his home was like and how it was built.
Yeah, very cool. Looking forward to hearing more about your finds. And thanks so much for taking time for us this morning, Lindsay. That is Lindsay Amundsen-Meyer from the University of Calgary.